I was skeptical of the talks in the first place, despite accepting that they were going to take place. The optics, of course, had been blown out of proportion, as you can imagine, particularly because the Pakistanis wanted to capitalize on the fact that they were leading the globe in mediation and the rest of it. And I can understand even that as well, bringing Pakistan in from the cold as a rogue state, trying to play the role of a responsible state. But it is ironic that both are rogue states, neighboring Islamic republics and rogue states, both Pakistan and Iran, both are insurrectionist states, and both have neighbors who would unabashedly qualify them as terrorism sponsoring states. So that's for the backdrop. Coming to the point of the actual talks and to your direct query, as Vice President Vance put it, there was a fundamental commitment undertaken where what was sought from Tehran was a no questions asked, complete, full, binding commitment to no nuclear enrichment now or in the future. That was a basic fundamental premise with which Washington arrived and wanted to pursue to the fullest. And that's something which President Trump has spoken about in the last few weeks too. Despite all the flip-flops, the one consistent point which he has driven home is that Iran can never have a nuclear program. Your viewers would be aware of that fact. That has not changed despite all the other permutations and revisions that he undertakes in his erratic form of broadcasting. So that is what I believe the Tehran would have steadfastly refused to offer in principle. Regardless of whether Khamenei said in the past that nuclear weapons are un-Islamic and haram and we're not going to get them, we do know that they were pursuing weapons-grade enrichment. Nobody goes ahead and has 60% stockpile, which can be ramped up to 90% in a matter of course towards weapons-grade. You don't need that much for civilian nuclear fuel supplies, even with an energy crunch in your country. And we do know also from Persian media sources, IRGC officials themselves on television and other talk shows. And so many of them are there on YouTube and other social media portals where one can see that they have themselves not just claimed, but even boasted that we were hoodwinking the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, and the West in the talks leading up to the JCPOA and even after when Trump reneged on the JCPOA and came out in May 2018. So this was the driving point that Iran could not bring itself to accept that. Then there's also this aspect, namely that there were two distinct features of how you frame the talks that took place in Islamabad. Although Washington came in with the nuclear issue, Iran also tried to publicly play to the gallery on the Strait of Hormuz and the Lebanon question. Vice President Vance had mentioned on his departure from Budapest earlier in the week that Lebanon was never part of the draft plan leading up to the talks to occur, and that is an entirely distinct matter. It also goes to show why Iranian sources are blaming the Lebanese government and coming down on them as to why is the Lebanese government facilitating talks with Tel Aviv through the Americans. Well, I mean, at some point, the Lebanese government has to communicate with the Israeli government over the bombings that are taking place, thanks to Hezbollah's bombings in turn taking place in northern Israel. But so Iran has this absurd idea that it can question Lebanon for having bilateral discussions or through the American mediation with Israel, which is plainly absurd. And then you have the question of the Lebanese ambassador being asked to leave Beirut. The Lebanese foreign ministry has declared him persona non grata and asked him to leave, and he refuses to do so. I mean, talk about arrogance that Iran likes to talk about the Americans and Westerners. What about Iranian arrogance? Why is that not being discussed? What about Iranian regional hegemony? If this is not a prime example of that, I don't know what is.